Good afternoon, colleagues. Can we please check the interpretation? And please switch on the video recording. Can you please check and confirm that you can hear the interpreter?
Доброго дня, шановні депутати, переклад працює.
Yes, it is working. Okay, colleagues, thank you. We see everything works. There is a DDoS attack going on right now at the Verkhovna Rada, so it may happen, some of you may be knocked out of Zoom. We will try to get you back on board soon. I hope we will address the problem soon. Today, the Verkhovna Rada that is working in the plenary mode has voted and supported my offer as a head of the TSC to allow our commission to meet during the plenary session, because the matter we are going to discuss today is very much important. Two hugely important issues. Firstly, it's everything related to the housing allowance payments. In March 2024, unfortunately, we have a situation when the number of IDPs in March who get those 2,000-3,000 hryvnias from the government as a housing allowance payment, only 616 of them received those payments. So it's like 3 times fewer than in February and January. Another important issue, we will talk about the war-affected individuals and documented losses are prerequisite for the introduction of mechanism for support on payment of reparations for the damage caused by the Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine. It's also a very important point because there are a lot of affected individuals who do not register the damage caused to their lives, health, property, and we have a matter related to the purchase of the premises of the Druzhba Children's Camp by the Lysychansk City Military Administration, and we will also review the preferential loan programs for internally displaced individuals. So we have quite a few matters to discuss. Thank you for joining in. Thank you to international humanitarian organizations who are helping Ukraine to address the problems that our IDPs are facing. Thank you to all the MPs and all our colleagues who have joined us. We have 11 MPs now in the room, and we have quite a few colleagues on Zoom. And our distinguished invitees also, thank you for attendance. Let's approve the agenda. We have 4 points on the agenda, 4 items. They're different, so let's vote on the agenda. So please vote to confirm to approve the agenda of the TSC Verkhovna Rada on the protection of property and non-property rights of internally displaced persons and other persons affected by the aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. Who is in favor of the motion? So for the protocol, we have 9 people in the room. And we have so we have 11 votes in favor. Anyone abstained or against? No, the motion is passed. Yes, I vote for the motion. Okay, yeah, we have it on record. Okay, let's We have the deputy head of the commission, Dmitry Romanovich, with us. So we have 11 people in the room now. That's for the record. Let's consider the first item on the agenda, the current state of housing allowance payments to internally displaced persons. As I understand, we don't have the Ministry of Social Policy and Ministry of Finance representatives. Anyone on Zoom from these ministries? Yes, I'm from. I'm Yermolych Roman, Deputy Minister of Finance. How about Ministry of Social Policy? Yes, please take a seat over there. How about Acting Minister Darina Marchak? She's going to join us in 20 minutes. Okay, let me tell you a couple of points. Unfortunately, in 2024, we voted for the budget, all of you, and we reduced it by 18 billion hryvnia. We reduced the housing allowance payment for the IDPs. Now in the budget, we have 57.6 billion hryvnia in the budget. And in January and February 2024, this allowance was received by 2.5 million recipients every month. We used about 5.8 million hryvnias for that. After the procedure for the payment of the allowance was changed. It happened in January, then it was amended in March 2024. So now in March, in March, the number of recipients went 4 times down. So now we have about 716,000 IDPs. So we sort of, in inverted commas, we saved. Talking about pensioners, skilled workers from Mariupol, their pension is about 10-12,000 hryvnias, and all the IDPs who came from Mariupol now are asking question: how about the pensioners? How can we integrate into normal lives? How, or do we need to go back to work? Something. We asked the Ministry for Social. Colleagues, you all have the agenda. Let's follow the agenda. We have a lot of issues to cover. Darina, are you with us? Okay, you will have a chance to continue, but we need to talk to Mr. Roman Yermolych. Are you with us? Yes, I am. Unfortunately, we had a problem with Zoom because of this DDoS attack. So we don't have 12 billion. We have lacking because we're supposed to withdraw 1 billion a month, but in January we withdrew over 4 billion. So if we go with that kind of pace, we suspect, God forbid, of course, but we suspect that you also want to get some money from the IDPs. I want to warn you, that's not going to happen. This will happen only when the Minister of Finance and all the MPs will start getting the minimum wage. I mean, we don't have enough money without even that. And now if you want to get money from the IDPs, that won't work. We need to wait for the Minister of Social Policy. And while we're waiting, can you please comment how you are going to cut those 57.6 billion of the assistance that the IDPs were supposed to get? All right, so talking about our plans, there was a draft law on the reduction of expenses. If we had that, then we could talk about the plans. If you talk, since you talk about cutting down the wages of MPs, nothing stands on your way. You can initiate this matter, draft a bill, and reduce the salaries of MPs and the Minister of Finance down to the minimum wage. But I have not seen any bill of that kind yet. We would be happy to support that bill. As to the other matters, I don't understand what you mean now. Now so far we've got the 57.6 billion in the budget. Well, you commented on my words that we will not let the number 57.6 go down. You say that we want to register a bill to reduce the salaries of MPs. Do you have any plans to cut down the public budget? Because last time we talked to you, you promised everything will be financed. My distinguished colleagues from the Verkhovna Rada, we are living under the extremely hard financial situation in Ukraine. We don't have money for defense even. So I can't say anything on public, but the budget may be sequestered, may be reduced. Chances are it may happen next year as well, because the money from our international partners have not been confirmed yet, and we are not getting that. And you probably know that very well. If you knew how the economy works, you'd know what are the sources of revenues for the budget, but you don't, and we don't have money even for defense. You can be talking words, but it won't give you money, yeah, because words cost nothing. But in fact, we don't have money in this country. Okay, 57.6 billion. What's the percentage of the total expenses in the budget? Well, you can do the math. Why do we need to talk about that? So far, there has not been any bill to reduce this number. This number is something that we have in the budget. Ministry for Social Policy, do we have them already with us or not? On Zoom at least. Marina Marchak. No, we don't have Zoom here. I can only use the mobile phone, but I hope we will be able to hear you. I'm sorry, this is impossible to interpret. Unfortunately, the interpreter cannot hear anything. Unfortunately, the sound is very bad. I cannot hear the speaker. Is it a question to the Minister of Finance, Roman? It's a question. I'm sorry. Yes, I can't hear you either. The connection is very bad. Where are you now? I'm at my workplace, and same with us. We're invited to the meeting of the TSC I was. Why didn't you come? What do you mean I didn't? I'm here. Why are we talking over the web, not with us in the room? There are 13 MPs waiting for you. Am I supposed to be interrogated here or something?
You were able to participate. Dear colleagues, we have the key speaker for this topic, Ministry of Social Policy, and 1.9 million, dear colleagues. So let's not we invited the guests, the international guests. Let's respect each other, dear colleagues. I would like to ask you. The Ministry of Finance is with us. The fact that we have technical problems, uh, so why we are giving people the chance to join? We are voting for these people as Parliament. I was voting for the Minister of Finance, so I think that and he has, and should he, like, is he the one who is going to tell us how to work? So we have honorable guests, and the Ministry of Finance have informed us that they are going to be on Zoom. I'm very sorry, but we refuse them to participate. If it is the head of the Zaporizhia or Donetsk or Kherson Oblast military administration, then okay. So let's, if we will have Darina Marchak, of course, then yes. So this fact that the Ministry of Social Policy just ignored this topic on the level of the department, that's irrespect to the Commission. So do we have Ms. Darina Marchak? Please, dear colleagues, raise your hands. Can I have 1 minute? Let's not fight. Mr. Pavlov Valerievich, I have an offer. When we are meeting offline as the temporary commission and those ministries are located, which are in Kyiv, they have to be here and not on Zoom. And what about Kyrvograd? They are here. Yes, and I can hear that everyone hears that we didn't know that in Ukraine the situation is difficult. Probably we didn't know that that was a minister who told us. Let him wait for the fourth topic, and it's better if he comes here to answer the fourth answer. And on the example of Lysychansk, we will tell him where do billions of hryvnias are gone, and let's invite this person and let's wait for the first question. You mean the fourth question? That is the loans. Loans for the IDPs. The Minister of Finance is not the one which can answer this question. Let's send it to. Let's vote for this. So, dear colleagues, Ms. Vojkovich, the deputy head. To be honest, it was very weird for me to be listening to what was said. The deputies of the parliament who are here, they got the approval of the session hall. They got 287 votes for us to be able to listen to these utmost important topics, which are about millions of our citizens. It was very weird for me to hear the deputy minister, and that was very rude on how he treats the parliament. Yes, I do understand everything, but in this situation, I think that it seems to me that in this situation, we need to ask the vice minister, and we have to inform about this behavior, because the parliament and the government the government is appointed by the parliament. The ministers are subordinated to the committees, and therefore um, maybe we can send a letter regarding these situations. So we have to respect each other. Otherwise, why do you go? Um, why do you go in the government? So the vice minister, the accountability of the ministers, the deputy minister is accountable to the parliament. So probably we have confused the executive and legislative branches of power. So let's vote for this. I suggest to discuss let's listen to those who are present in this room. Let's respect them, them waiting for their turn to have a word. We have an offer. Let's consider the issues, the questions. Let's consider those questions which can be answered by the representatives present in this room. Dear colleagues, so we work since 2020, both online and offline. Let's respect the work of each and everyone, because we have never had the decision that we are listening only those who are online, who are offline. The question of mobilization is now is discussed. We have to support the amends. Sorry, the sound was lost. The fourth question. Dear colleagues, in fact, we have a good offer. Let's move to the fourth question. Well, that is what our colleagues have suggested us. So that is a question. Is the fourth one on the loans for housing for IDPs and making these programs more available. And we have the Ministry of Finance and also Ms. Natalia Kozlovska and also the state financial housing review of preferential loan programs for internally displaced person to purchase housing and the necessary measures to expand and increase the availability of these programs. So let's voice. If you don't mind, we can move to the next question. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. As for the program of the preferential loan for IDPs, I would like to remind you that according to the results of the common meetings, we came to the conclusion that we can consider what kind of resources do we have to predict the resources we will have for the preferential loans for the IDPs. So what are we talking in this case? The mechanism for the loan mechanism for the IDPs is quite difficult, because first payment is 25% of the price, and for the people it is quite unaffordable, and therefore there is the mechanism which allows to pay 6% per year, and we have considered the program which we had, and we understood that we can use 600 million for this program. I do understand that it's not big money, but nevertheless, there are 350 people who will get a more affordable housing. I would like to remind that according to the law on state financing will be returned to the budget, and the money which we were provided by the European Union, we got the approval from the European Union that these money are these multi-purpose financing, and we got the approval that it's multi-purpose assistance, and we have negative answer from the Minister of Finance, but I think that we will have the meeting with them and we will insist to use this money for loans to have this opportunity. And I think that in this case, we will need your support. And I hope that we will be able to do this the next week. And we will work on this topic. Thank you, Ms. Natalia. And you said that you are going to have a meeting with the Ministry of Finance, and I also know about this situation, 600 million, if we will be able to provide it to the youth housing, it means that in addition to 1,000 people who will get these preferential loans for 30 years, and the 6% the first payment and 3% yearly interest. That is a very interesting condition for the people, and for the state it is important to provide all the IDPs who have the finances, who can work, who can carry this burden of 4 million IDP people. So we were discussing this on many meetings, and Mr. McCollum, we have Mr. Roman with us, the Minister of Finance. Roman Vladimirovich, as far as I know, you had a meeting, and this meeting was not resultative. So the money, the loan, 600 million hryvnias, the Minister of Finance said that it's not the development of the regions. Why it is not the regional development? There are 600 families which will be integrated in Hromada, in community, and they will be working. So maybe that's not your topic, that's not your expertise, but nevertheless, it's also about finances. So can you explain why these solution was not approved? When we're talking about the support of the ADP, the Minister of Finance is not supporting these solutions. Do you understand what we are talking about? Mr. Roman. Yes, I would like to clarify. Thank you, dear Parliament. Ms. Natalia, can you be a bit louder? Ms. Natalia, who did you have the meeting with? And do you have the official conclusion of the Minister of Finance? Yes, Mr. Roman, good afternoon. We have the conclusion. We received it on the 20th of March, and the information on the results I will send you. And yes, we had this meeting, and your colleague, Ms. Denis Uluchin, coordinates this question. And could you tell us, please, do they forbid you to send this project to the Parliament? We have sent this draft project to the Ministry of Justice, and we will move forward. And we know that it is going to be considered on the governmental committee. So the Minister of Finances is not prohibiting you to this project. Okay, so then we will be asking for your support to adopt these solutions. So I recommend you to work in the legal framework. The Minister of Finance provided you with legal conclusion, and you can send it to the government, and the decision will be made according to this. Okay, thank you. The sound is not clear. A small clarification. You noted that you have financing for 350 loans, approximately. 597 million. And what is the need for the loans? Considering the big number of IDPs and what was said by Mr. Pavlo, not all of them are registered as IDPs. I mean the registered ones. Almost 3 million, and I'm even afraid to name this number aloud. And invoice. Are you expecting the money, and when? When are you expecting the increase of financing? If we're talking about the state budget, we are not relying on the state budget, and we understand what the Minister of Finances is talking about. We are working on two directions. We work with Ministry of Economy and e-housing, and the opportunity to use e-housing money to provide the loans to the IDPs, and in the framework of what was mentioned by Pavlo, And the second direction is that we have the understanding with CB on financing of this direction of the loans for the IDPs, and the portfolio of the loan is the same. So we are trying to use all the resources for the IDPs, those IDPs who are able to work, for them to be able to get the housing. Yes, the need is crazy. Only 350, approximately 350 loans. So that is extremely small number considering the big tragedy which happened to the IDPs. And therefore, I would like to recommend the Commission to get focused on this direction. And I would like to recommend to activate the work on looking on searching for the resources which can be used for the loans, for the IDP loans. Yes, Ms. Yulia, we absolutely agree with you, and we are ready to work in this direction, because the stronger we are, the more we heard for us to get this support. But nevertheless, those people who need social protection, they are not covered by this approach. And the second thing is that the housing of IDPs whose housing was damaged, they will not be able to get the compensation, and they will not be able to buy the housing. And now we have the approved financing of CB. Thank you, Ms. Nadia Bihun. Of course, before you you will have your 3 minutes. E-housing has a very big first payment, 20%, and unfortunately, they do not have the preferable loans. And the IDPs, as far as I know, they have 7% and not 3% as ITO soldiers, and just 129 loans the IDPs got in the framework of e-housing. We have the offers, but please, the floor is yours, up to 3 minutes, please. Dear Deputy Parliament deputies, and yes, according to e-housing, we have provided some number of housing of loans during the last 2 years, and in fact, the program is quite effective, and we can see that this program stimulates the construction, because for us, the ministry, as the Ministry of Economics, our main focus is not the loan. Is not the loans on the secondary market, but to stimulate construction, because the construction which creates big volumes, a big number of working places, and big number of taxes. And of course, we have lots of objects which were frozen, and the money were frozen, and therefore the construction to relaunch construction is our main objective, which we try to achieve with this program. And we can see that this achievement is made. And as for the IDPs, we can see that 13,000. So the demand is 13,139. That is the number of applications from the IDPs in e-housing that are families which understand that they are ready to have loans. So they have applied to go through this procedure, and they understand that they are ready to use this opportunity. Around 40% were approved, and we have issued of 139 loans. So how does it work? You apply through DIA app, and this application is sent to all the banks, and that is around 10 banks. And then there is automatic scoring, because we integrate it with the register. Then the bank get the profile of the applicant and enough information to approve the decision. The decision is made quite fast. It takes around 1 day, maybe sometimes even faster, because if they have all the information in the register, there is a script which works for the banks, which helps to understand the profile of the applicant and to understand whether the bank is ready to finance this loan or not. And on this stage, 40% of the loans can be supported by the banks, and people see that yes, okay, you can get the loan, and then the applicant has to find the apartment, and then to come with the bank with a package of the documents, and to to apply for a loan. And then some people cannot find the housing, because we are financing the new housing, the new construction, or the construction which was which became available not more than 3 years ago, and therefore a secondary market is not financed by e-housing, because we understand that are people who are selling on the secondary market, that are people who are typically abroad, and if they get this money will be used somewhere abroad, and they will not be used in Ukraine. And of course, the market is going up, because if you give more finances to the secondary market, the price on the secondary market is going to raise. And in the result, we will have the increased price for the housing. Therefore, we are focused on the not on the secondary market, and we are ready to work with the programs. And yes, we're in the process of negotiations of CB, which is focused on the assistance to the IDPs. And the question you raised, 20% the first payment, and we had a number of meetings, and we discussed that we can have the additional program, and for example, to issue the vouchers for the IDPs to be able to cover the first payment with vouchers. We have the preliminary discussion, and they are ready to discuss it, and together with the colleagues from the Ministry of Infrastructure, we can implement this project. Thank you.
Okay, Nadia, do you agree that if we talk about this program of Ukrmolodь Житло, housing for young people, they get 6% and the 3% as interest rate, do you agree to have the same conditions for EOSILA? Well, we now have 7% as an interest rate per annum, and the first installment is 20%. I mean, we can talk about that and look for options how to stimulate the IDPs if we have support from donors. I think we can do it. All right. Mykolo Marchuk. Head of the Держмолодь Житло, so the housing service for young people. So we have up to 1,000 families that are getting support with the under this program, where they pay 7% at the first installment and then 3% as an interest rate. So now a family of 2 individuals with a official salary of 17,000-18,000, they can pay 10,000 as a installment and years interest rate, and pay the money not to rent apartment but to buy their own housing. Yes, we are working with the government of Germany now, with the Renaissance Bank, and we are introducing now the program for the IDP housing. The minimum installment is 6%, the interest rate is 3% per annum, and the loan is provided for 30 years. The IDPs who don't have property and official income can apply. We already have implemented the first stage. In 2022-23, we provided 669 loans with this money. We carried out international audit, and after the audit, our partners decided to continue the project, to continue finance it in 2024. We have 17 million euro that we can use to give out 400 loans for the IDPs, for the IDP families. The program is unique because it has a revolving fund, which means that all the money that we get as payback of interest, they can be used for other loans. That's how the way it works. You can register via DIA or via our regional offices that we have across Ukraine. And we pick up the applications randomly, so we just determine certain number of winners who get this chance to receive the loan. This mechanism is in big demand from the IDPs now. We talk to our citizens regularly. We understand how important it is for them. And we believe that this mechanism needs to be scaled up and engage as many resources as possible in forms of grants and other loans. Yes, I wanted to ask a question to Natalia Kozlovska. How about raising more resources? I heard that the Development Bank of the Council of Europe could have played a role here to increase the amount of resources. Yes, actually, that's what I meant when I spoke. We have an understanding with this bank for the implementation of a similar project, but with this bank now. And to apply similar mechanisms and procedures to all the projects funded by donors and focused on loan facilities for the IDPs. Now we are preparing a project with KFE and the Commission to see how the projects work, what can be improved, how the current projects work, what could be improved, so that we could implement similar projects, not only with the bank for construction of the Council of Europe, but with other banks as well. I think that what we're trying to do now is to refocus all our projects, except for the project for partial compensation for the individuals who have access to resources on the deoccupied areas. Another area for us is the housing for the people who became IDPs because their housing was destroyed. And I hope that our project with the Council of Europe's Bank will cover the needs of more IDPs. But so far, many needs are not covered. And we need to think where to get money to help those IDPs. Do we have questions? You say you provide loans to IDPs. How about the age limit? Up to 35? No, we don't have that kind of limit. We have that limit in the youth programs, but the programs for IDPs have the age limit of 65 years. So it's like 30 years of loan maturity and 65 years old. Who takes the loans now? Who borrows this money? Only IDPs can take part in the program. Okay, do we vote now? Deputy Head of the Office of President joined us. We are talking about the loans. Now we will talk about the registration of the people affected by war. Yes, indeed. Thank you for invitation. I understand you're talking about the IDPs now, and I want to make my point clear here. The international mechanism we are going to talk about in the second item of the agenda, it also addresses this matter as well, because in our international register, we also have a category of individuals as IDPs. So those IDPs are covered by the register, and they can get registered in this register. And our understanding is that on the next stage of the development of the compensation mechanism is going to be the establishment of a compensation commission that would determine the amount of compensation to which those individuals are entitled to. And we believe the IDPs would get this compensation at the expense of Russia. So what our government is doing today in form of support, it's not compensation, it's not reparation. It's just the goodwill of the government. And certainly we need to register those payments, certainly because later the government would be able to apply to the compensation mechanism to pay back, to compensate for the mechanism. If the government is paying its own money, if the government is using loaned money, certainly it won't be able to get them back via the compensation mechanism. Certainly the government is doing a good job and job that is needed by the IDPs, but we need to also to understand that these people, by the end of the second 6 months, so for the first 6 months in Q2, we will open up this opportunity for IDPs to get registered, or in the register they would be able to inform the register about what happened to them, the housing and so on. Yes, we will move on to the item number 2 on our agenda. Now you'll talk more about that. Minister of Finance, Roman Vladimirovich. I don't have any question, but we can't hear you. Can you please speak up? A colleague from this the service for young people, housing service for young people, you talked about mortgage loans. You probably know that we have about 900 million in the budget for this year. And I want to ask you a question. How many loans have you given this year so far, and how many applications have you received, so that we and MPs could understand how many loans have been given to the IDPs? This amount of 42.5 million euros provided by the credit institutions. It's a revolving facility. So if we exhaust it, it means that our German partners will provide another amount. So can you please tell us how many loans have you given out and how many applications have you received on the table? Yes, we know what you mean. We regularly have been raising this matter, and we know that unfortunately it's 1 to 35 ratio. So 35 applications, only one gets a loan. And we already talked to this Держmolodь Житло, of the housing service for young people. We talked to them already about this this problem, and still there are even among young people there are only 1 of 3 families who can get a loan under the youth program. 2/3 can't. Unfortunately. Well, the money that you talk about, it's not revolvable, it's reversible. So what we mean is this is the money that we don't receive back in form of interest rate. It's just the money that can be replenished to provide new loans. As to the number of individuals who have been registered, over 36,000 families have been registered in the register already, applying for those loans. There is another program for ATO combatants. There are about 9,000 families that applied. So those people who confirmed their desire and got registered to take part in this competition. But we have only 17 million for this year, and 600 million hopefully would be transferred from the fund for the regional development that can be used for these programs. So can you speak up again? Well, you didn't say yet how many funds we have in the budget for this year. I'm looking at this program for the mortgage and beneficial preferential loans. I have the amount of 887.5 million scheduled for the program. You say you don't have enough money. So my question is, out of this 887.5 million, how much have you already given to the IDPs, and how many applications do you have? Do you still have? Because my information sources have say that there are only 2 applications that you have satisfied. Well, no, your source is wrong, because the money that you mean is the grant, and your number is denominated in hryvnia. We operate the money denominated in euro. Soon we're going to make a request to our partners from Germany, and we will get the first tranche out of the 17 million scheduled for this year. So we don't have this money yet, but we will use it soon. How come you have the delays? Is it also because of the Ministry of Finance? I mean, you approved the budget back in November. Now we are in April. Why haven't you prepared the necessary documents yet? I don't think this is an appropriate question, because we're talking about bilateral agreements. Well, Natalia, maybe you know. We do, but we are not discussing that here, because we want our partners to continue supporting us. Definitely, we should not be talking about that stuff publicly, Roman. Right. Can we move on to the voting? So you received the draft decision and chats. For the protocol, I'm going to read it out. So something that we're going to vote for right now. I will need to make a small correction in item number 1. I will read only the decision. The Commission decided to apply to the Prime Minister with a proposal to look for international and redistribute national resources for the IDPs, so that they could exercise their housing rights with help of preferential loans and mortgages, and to reduce the interest rate down to 3%, and to set the amount of first installment on the level of 6%. Second, jointly with Ukrfinžitlo, we asked to review the conditions for preferential loans and mortgages for the IDPs. Then there is a name of the resolution on which to which we refer to. We suggest we do that with the help of using the appropriate financial mechanism, and reduce the again the interest rate down to 3% and the first installment to 6%. Third point, we urge to take actions to fill the budget with money to implement the resolution regarding the ATO competence. Number 4, to offer to the Ministry of Finance and Ministry for Recovery and the Ukrainian state housing service for youth people to redistribute the funds, reduce the scope of money used for the regional development. And in particular, use the 597 billion hryvnias to provide the preferential loans to the ATO combatants and IDPs. I'm being really quick, and I'm reducing the time so that we could have time to voting. Number 5. For the Ministry of Recovery and the Держмолодь law, we offer to take actions to find necessary resources to implement the program accessible affordable housing in line with appropriate resolution. Number 6, to offer to the Ministry of Reintegration and Ministry of Recovery to take certain actions to scale up the projects focused on housing for IDPs, and now find additional international partners. Number 7, approach our partners and ask them to help us finance additional programs for the IDPs, and to the Ministry of Reintegration, Ministry of Recovery, and other agencies to help us organize the feasibility studies. I suggest we add the clause number 2 to include a couple of other institutions: Ukrainian Укрфінжитло and Держмолодьжитло, so the financial services for funding the loans for young people, and Ukrainian Financial Service for loans. Yes, good point.
We suggest the local authorities to join, but also we would like to ask the oblast military administrations, because they also have big financial resources to assist the citizens of their territories. So you suggest to contact the oblast military administration together with the associations, but you want to use the local authorities' money, local governments. Okay, and the state ones. Okay, so I hope no one minds it. Oh, okay. So the budgets of the oblast military administrations. So yeah, okay, we get the idea, and technically we will describe it better on our regular meetings. Thank you, Miss Yulia. Yulia Svetlishna, your suggestion was really good, and I totally agree with it. Dear colleagues, I ask you to support the TSC decision, and let's vote. Those of you who are for this decision, 11 for, against. And who do we have online? Molotok, for. A positive. So we have 12 participants of TSC, and the decision is made. For the minutes, I will inform that Yurchenko, Vatsahivsky, Svitlichna, Kozir, Arsenyuk, Горбенко, Tkachenko, Velmožny, Frolov, Velichkovich, and Volinets had a positively accepted this. And now I suggest to consider the second question, because we invited Miss Irina Mudra from the, and also we have the acting deputy minister, and also we have today the head of the projects of the Council of Europe, Miss Hanna Kristova, who is who will be the head of the office of Ukrainian office of the damaged and destroyed housing. So so let's consider the second question, and then we'll come back to the first question. and we have the acting Minister of Social Policy, Ms. Irina. Thank you very much for joining this meeting. Being as a deputy of the Minister of Justice, you were taking care of this question and you helped this question to move. And in Ukraine, we have a unique situation because even before the end of the war, before the military actions are over, we have the international agreement and we have the international register of destroyed housing and property. And I know that that were big efforts from your side. Ms. Irina, the floor is yours. Thank you, Mr. Pavlo. Once again, I would like to thank for the invitation. And if you don't mind, I will speak on behalf of the Minister of Justice because I just moved to the office, but the things which I already made were made in the framework of the Minister of Justice. And I have the head of the Department of the International Law, Hanna Tyshenko, of the Ministry of Justice, and therefore I'm going to speak under control and on behalf of the Ministry of Justice. I will make a short revision of the measures made by the Ministry of Justice and bringing to charging and also as for the question of the reparations of the Russian Federation, by the decree of the president, we had the expert group where Ukrainian experts and international experts were working on the concept of the international compensation mechanism, which we presented in November 2022 on the General Assembly of the UN. And as a result, the resolution on the 14th of November 2022 was made, assisting the compensation of the Russian Federation due to the Russian war in Ukraine, and where it was stated that the Russian Federation should be charged for the international and humanitarian law and human rights law in Ukraine or against it, and also including its aggression and against the charts of the UN, and they have to be responsible for these violations, and having the understanding that the Russian Federation is not going to pay the compensations as it should have been made. And 94 countries have voted for creating the unique compensation mechanism to pay the reparation. It was recommended by the UN members countries to create the register of the damaged property, and for the Council of Europe to make the next decision, the political and legal basis for this decision was the resolution of the General Assembly of the UN. Then the Council of Europe has suggested to their platform to place the register of the damaged property under the Council of Europe, and in 2023, on the 15th, and we have made the wider expanded agreement on the register of the damaged property. And today we are saying that we have the first element of three-component mechanism, which is recognized internationally, and this register will become the basis for recording of the evidences and applications on compensation for property. And here we have three categories. The property damaged after the 24th of February 2022 and on the territory of Ukraine. And as a result, the Russian aggression against Ukraine. The decision to create this kind of register and placing this kind of register in GAC in the Netherlands was made by the Cabinet of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and in September 2023 this register was created. What is this register? This register is an international legal company which is created which was established according to the legislation of the Netherlands with its own government management, and the register there are 44 participants which have the conference of the members, and then we have a board of the register, and they are the key elements to approve all the procedures and the reglement of the register, the categories of the damages, the form of compensation for each form, and also the evidences, what kind of evidence should be provided for different categories, and the executive body, that is secretariat, both council, both board and secretariat, they are working, they are operating. The council, the board was established on in 2023. Until now, they have approved the regulative documents that are the rules of applying and changes and applying amendments to the registers, and also they have approved the form for the first category, and for one of the categories we started accepting applications to the international register, and also the principles of the personal data protection. These registers were opened on the 2nd of April, and we announced that the register is launched. And a few days before this, we have announced that the office will be open, and this office will be in the Council of Europe's office, and Hanna Kristeva will become the head of this office. Therefore, as I already mentioned in the beginning, the register is the first component, and we have 3 components which we need to fulfill this resolution, and one of 3 components we have so far. Now we are working on the second component. The second component is important, but it's not ultimate our aim. That is a compensation information, that is a compensation council, which will define what was the damage caused to each of the applicants who applied to the register. And the third component, which is related to the second component, that is the compensation fund, because we understand that this commission cannot be fulfilled in the framework of the court. Therefore, we have to have the fund to finance this decision. And Ukraine insists, and we have and our partners understand that as well. So far we have we are looking for the legal basis, so that first of all, the assets of the Russian Federation should become the basis for this fund. And if we are talking about the central bank, that are around 300 billion, and there is no final decision that these money have to be given to Ukraine, and that there are political and legislative basis to do this. But everyone understands that the Russian Federation will not likely do it themselves, and therefore we need to have our international partners, international mechanism, and it will be easier than confiscating, freezing, and confiscating these assets. So when we're talking, when we asking, when we're talking, who will be able to apply the information to the register, and what are the requirements for this information? As already mentioned, we have the register started to work on the first category, and so far we have 44 categories, and they are published on the website of the register and on the website of the Ministry of Justice. And the categories are divided into 3 subjects. The subjects are the applications of the physical of individuals, that are the applications of the legal entities, and also the applications as a state. So the state will be applying as a state, and even though it is not correctly to call it reparation, because it should be called compensation, because we are doing with ongoing war, and the reparations are paid, as we know, after the war is over. And therefore, in each of the categories of individual and legal entities, we have different subcategories. And if we, for example, take as an example the individuals, the applications of the individual, even though the state application is also important. In this case, the individuals who were forced to move from the territories, that are the IDPs in Ukraine and people who had to leave Ukraine, and also applications about the personal so human rights that are abductions, rape, sexual abuse, harassment, tortures, imprisoning, physical exploitation, labor exploitation, so different things which can be applied in these cases, and also loss of property. And the register started operating and started to accept the applications on the damaged real estate and damaged housing. That was the easiest category to test the IT structure and how this information will be processed in the register, because this information is available in the Ukrainian register and can be sent through DIA to the international registers. And the state losses that are the losses to the critical and non-critical infrastructure, that is housing, public houses, the historical and cultural heritage, the ecological, environmental damages, the support of the IDPs and affected population, demining and depolluting, and also the legal entities, that is the loss of business, the loss of real estate property, cultural property, and the loss of assets. We also understand that the register will be operating through DIA, and all the applications have to be applied through DIA app or through website DIA. Everything should be done through DIA, as I already mentioned, because nowadays we have now we have the chance, the opportunity to apply through DIA. And the second category is for the IDPs and people who had to become the refugees, that are the people who were who faced sexual exploitation, harassment, the loss of the family member, and also the damages of the infrastructure. So that are going to be the next categories which will be approved by the register in the first 2 quarters. Until the end of the year, we're going to approve the forms of the applications will be approved, and we have different rules of applying of the information, and also the requirements for the evidences. And on all of the 44 categories, the Council has undertaken the obligation to form the requirements. In the same time, the Minister of Justice and the Office of the President are going to discuss with G7 and the other participants of the register on creating the Compensation Commission. The Compensation Commission, unfortunately, cannot be made in the framework of the expanded agreement. It will be made on the international agreement. And here we need the political will of the countries which voted for the resolution to make this kind of agreement. After we will approve on this agreement, and after that we will need to ratify this agreement, and therefore we can say that we will be able to move during a few months, we will be able to create the commission, and it will be established after a few months after ratification of the agreement. We have created for ourselves KPI that till the end of the year, we have to approve the text of the international agreement with our international partners to create the compensation commission. The most difficult question is not the fund, because we can take the existing one or we can create the new one. And the most important question is addressing the Russian assets, but we are working on these. And you know that today we are discussing a few options on how we can use the assets and how we can confiscate the assets. Of course, it's a very complicated legal issue, but it is being discussed, and therefore saying that our people will be able to get the compensation in the next few months or half a year or year is impossible. That is going to be a lie. These mechanisms will be working in 1.5 to 2 years, if to be realistic. And what else is important to mention? Then international register is improving the communication and cooperation with those registers which are functioning already in Ukraine, both for the real estate property and for IDPs, meaning that all the information which is already available somewhere in Ukrainian registers, this correlation with the international register will be made through the executive authorities and the cabinet of ministers. And we are negotiating this process of the acting director of the register, and that is going to be one of the topics of the newly established office that is actually the cooperation with the government of Ukraine on correlation of the information which is already available in Ukraine. And therefore this information exchange is going to happen. And also we are thinking how we can obtain the information which we have in the framework of the league of the court cases. And we have a few hundreds of them on the sexual exploitation, and that is a very complicated work, but we are working on it. And as for the individuals, we hope that for the individuals we will mitigate re-traumatization of these people, for these people not to be disturbed additionally if we already have this kind of information somewhere in the registers.
It's been a short overview of what we have done. Why did we decide to go this way? Because the Ukrainian international lawyers realized that unfortunately no one was prepared for that kind of full-scale invasion. Even the international law and the international legal instrument that would lead to court decisions, judgments are not available. And certainly Russia is not going to do that itself. That's why there was a decision to see what can be done to make Russia deliver its international commitments. Now there are negotiations going on about the international treaty, and in the conference in Hague, the presentation, the general overview of this document has been presented, and I hope that by the end of the year, all 44 participants will understand how this treaty would look like, and later the compensation commission would be created. The Netherlands have confirmed that they are prepared to host the compensation commission. That's why it's logical that the information with the register will be handed over to the compensation, and that's going to be the only database, the unified database with all the demands of Ukraine against Russia and demands of Ukrainian citizens affected by Russia that we can lodge against Russia starting from the moment of full-scale invasion. Unfortunately, the previous periods from 2014 till 2022 have not been covered by this perimeter. The General Assembly recognized that the act of aggression happened when the invasion happened. So the occupation of the Crimea and the eastern part of Ukraine were not recognized as an aggression, but it was recognized as an illegal occupation, illegal annexation. We at the Ministry of Justice are asked a lot whether we need there is a need to apply to Ukrainian courts, and whether the judgments of Ukrainian courts on compensation will have any power or any force. I can say that it is a sole discretion of individuals or legal entities. You can apply it in Ukrainian courts, but those judgments will not have any preemptive force. They will be seen as just an additional evidence. And one of the forms in the register says that if you have a judgment from Ukrainian court, please attach it, but it will be up to the commission to determine on the size of the commission. It may take into account the judgment of the Ukrainian court, or it may not. So for the longer term, we understand that we are preparing this tool, for the longer run, but at the same time, the government needs to provide some shorter term mechanisms to support the IDPs, for example, or the individuals whose privacy rights were violated. And our only request now is to take every action in coordination with the international register. That's it on my end. I'm prepared to answer any questions. Thank you, Irina. Yes, we have a lot of questions, but should we probably ask everyone if they have questions, because Irina is going to stay with us. Yes, I have a question then. Can I please start? Thank you, Irina. You mentioned loans. You said that loans is not something that we can rely on if we talk about the compensation against the suits against the aggression, but there is a preference, allowances that the government is paying to those people. So can we use that as a source for compensation request? And second point, have you coordinated the matter of collection of information with our partners so that we don't duplicate our efforts and so that we don't re-traumatize the victims of sexual violence or POWs? Because I mean, they probably would be interviewed several times, and it may cause some additional damage to them. And as to those suits, are they going to be collective or are they going to be individual? Coming to your question number one, certainly the government can claim compensation of the part of its budget that it paid in form of the support to the IDPs, and there are state humanitarian payments to support the affected citizens of Ukraine. This is something that the government can use to apply for compensation, because the government is providing support to the affected people that is supposed to provide if it hadn't been for the war. So if we say that the government is paying pensions, disability pensions, or any sort of other pension that the government was supposed to pay anyways. But as to the IDPs, these 2,000 hryvnias that we pay every month to the IDPs, so the government can also expect this money to be compensated in the future, right or not? Well, before the International Register confirmed its categories of damage, we developed our own proposals that actually, in our view, in the view of Ukraine, included our understanding of what kind of damage and the destruction should be included into the sources of claims or compensation. And we did that, but the register even dug deeper, and they included even the chance for the people who went abroad to apply for compensation for the destroyed housing in Ukraine. As to the compensation commission, the commission will consider every individual application in the register. So it's not going to be just one decision for entire Ukraine. No. And you can classify, you can group, you can consolidate the claims, but still they're going to be a distribution for each individual claim, because it is the affected person that needs to claim, and the person needs to attach documents, and everything's going to be stored in the register. But similar type of claims, they can be kind of grouped together, consolidated, and then filed to the commission for the consideration. But again, a commission will consider every single application based on their discretion. Certainly, we can only recommend what kind of rules should be applied, but there's going to be an international commission, not Ukrainian. Certainly, that's why we can't give any guarantees, any safeguards on that. Indeed, we are the first country ever that has started these processes during the war, and we found a new one that has never existed before in the world. I mean, the international legal mechanism or establishment of international register, and now we are about to set this compensation mechanism, including the commission and the fund. And that's certainly positive, but I mean, we can't give any guarantees at the moment. As you say, this is going to take a while, and the process includes ratification. We have Darina Marchak with us now. Yes, Ms. Darina, I think it's a question not to you personally, but to the executive government, maybe a question to us, to all of us. And we can address it very fast, but not here in this room, because we still are set to listen to the representatives of Lysychansk, of the Luhansk region, representatives of the military administration. Since the beginning of the invasion, the Lysychansk Vugilya and other coal enterprises, our miners remained in the mine. They worked and they were making money. They were mining coal. The coal was transported to the governmental purposes, but the miners never received money in forms of salary. So these people now, without any coordination with the heads of administration of those two enterprises, they transferred the information about them to the state property fund, but the state property fund says that it is not responsible for paying the salary to these miners. And we can't do anything about these people, the staff of these people, the senior management, chief accountant, and so on. They are still sort of officially getting salaries on, and those who managed to relocate, who are now working in other mines, the salaries are not paid in those mines either. And now the Ukrvugilya that's subordinated to Minister of Energy, it is in debt to another company over 1 million hryvnia, or over 200 hryvnia, sorry. So everyone knows about that. The law enforcement officers know about that, and this is a deadlock. And Ukrainians are now losing trust in the country, in the government, because they are in the deadlock. Because, I mean, the salary is being accrued, the salary is being officially paid because it's there on the payroll, but they never get the money. Well, this is not on our agenda. We invited international organizations to talk about the agenda that we predetermined. We are talking about the war-affected individuals, and or we are talking about people who were affected by the actions of Russia, not by Ukraine. I understand you are feeling bad about these people. You want them to be paid, but come on, let's stick to the agenda. I understand that this still the matter is important, and it's hard for me to comment on the steps that are being taken by the government. But what we are doing now, we have such a category of claims of individuals who have been affected by the loss of economic income. So if you can prove that these losses occurred as a result of the Russian aggression, then such people can apply for the compensation. Certainly the International Compensation Commission is not going to discharge the commitments of Ukraine as an employer. I mean, the salaries that Ukraine is supposed to pay. But if these people lost their jobs because of the aggression, they can apply. Maxim Tkachenko. Right, thank you, colleagues. Thanks to our colleague here. Certainly the agenda is agenda, but still we're talking about people and the IDPs. All these people are IDPs. So we understand that you feel for them. Yeah, you feel related to this matter. And certainly we can talk about that with our government and law enforcement agencies, of course. Irina, thank you, and we welcome you at your new position. Hopefully that your experience, expertise will help our nationals, our Ukrainians, enjoy good results. I encourage you to learn that in the parliament we have a big faction and a big team of volunteers for the support of IDPs. Now we have this temporary special commission that deals with IDP rights. And a lot of our members of our TSC are IDPs. I'm Maxim Tkachenko. I'm an IDP from Luhansk. I've been IDP for like 10 years now. I'm a deputy head of the faction of the Servant of the People in the parliament. We have other people from Donetsk, Luhansk regions that are IDP since 2014, and many other colleagues who really know what it is like to be an IDP. That's why we are dealing with all these matters that we have on the agenda today, and that we had at previous sessions, and that we will have at next sessions. We will work until we can, and until they allow us to, because unfortunately, IDP matters will not disappear after our victory. And what you are doing now, and what you have briefed us about right now, it is something that is going to happen after our victory, as I understand. It's when we can start to receive this money. I want still, in simple words, to get the information from you now and loud and clear. So this money that's paid to the people in form of housing support, like 2,000, 3,000 that each IDP receives every month from the government. Now we are going to talk more about that because we have Ms. Marchak who joined us, and it's important for that the representatives of the Office of the President really understand the whole picture. Maybe this is not something that you deal with regularly. It's Mr. Sokolovska who covers these matters. in December, there was a press conference of our president, if you remember that, and he clearly answered the question of a friend of mine from Luhansk region, whose community was occupied back in 2014. And our president clearly said that there are going to be no reduction of payments to IDPs. It was a clear answer. Without any buts. There was another question whether they're going to go up. He said he didn't know, and that's it. It's hard now, yeah, the hard times, and we're paying a lot to ensure our defensibility. But at least that's what he said. There are going to be no cuts. Afterwards, the Ministry for Social Policy registers a resolution according to which the payments are going to be cut. And they were supposed to be cut in February, as soon as in February, but no one didn't understand anything. No one knew who is going to continue the receive payments, who is not. And thanks to everyone from different ministries, thanks for supporting the initiative, or at least explaining to the people why the payments would be cut, and we need to explain to people why it's going to happen. So out of the IDPs who received the money in February, in March, only 600,000 of them received those payments. So we reduced the number of IDPs 4 times. And Mariupol and other cities have been asking questions now. And that's important to ensure that such cities as Bakhmut, Mariupol, Avdiivka, Luhansk, of course, Severodonetsk and Lysychansk and others, all these people from this, they have no chance for e-відновлення now, e-recovery. All other communities do have this chance, thank God.
There are the households which already get the compensation for like 500,000 hryvnias, even sometimes 2 million. So in some cases we give 1.5, 2 million hryvnias compensation. And as for the families from Bakhmut, from Avdiivka, we take $50 from them. And when the international partners hear these numbers, and when we explain them that it's $50, they are like, are you crazy? You don't respect people at all? With all our respect to and understanding of the situation in the country, the war isn't going, so it's very weird. And that was the reason why where Ruslan was asking the question to the Minister of Finances. Does this situation work for all the groups of people? We have decreased the salaries of the deputies of the parliament and for the representatives of the cabinet. Does it work for everyone, or that's just for the IDPs? Only those people who have nothing nowadays. But if you have 9,500 hryvnias pension, you will get to so what kind of compensation is this? It's not the money to support the IDPs. That's not the money for entertainment, for education, for medicine, for children. It is described since the very beginning. That is a compensation for housing, for the person to be able to rent the apartment. Some people can have money and they are paying additional money because you understand how much the rent is, and most of the people do not have enough money to rent housing, and people are adding their personal money, and we are taking this money and and taken back it. So that is a really big pain for us. And thank you, the representative of the Office of the President, for joining this meeting. And we would like to ask you to deliver this information, this message to the President. And we would like to explain once again that this payment of 50 billion we had in 2022, this year we will have some budget for this as well. So this money have to be compensated after our victory. So these people, these expenditures will be compensated by the Russian Federation. Yes, it is, but we have to understand that there cannot be double interest. So if one got the compensation from the state, then the budget can apply, not the individual. Miss Irina, as far as I understand, that was actually the question. And actually, so the Minister of Finances say that we have to save the money, but for some reason they are saving the money, and we voted for 58 billion hryvnias. But some way they suggest saving money on the IDPs. But we as a state in the future can apply for compensation as a state because the state has provided this money. This money will go where? To the economy to support the households and other sectors of our economy. So the Ministry of Finance, do they know that this money is subject to compensation? That is a resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers. So we have the representative of the Ministry of the Internal Affairs and we are considering the question on the Lysychanska military administration. So the administration has the money to procure something, and the Minister of Finances some way is not cutting down this budget of the military administrations, but nevertheless, they do not have the money for the IDPs and they cut it 4 times. But this money can be compensated in the future. We can apply for the compensation and we can get the compensation thanks to the frozen assets and the money which were given to the military administrations and where we have the open cases, court cases. And let's be honest, our partners, our colleagues know more about this topic. This money was stolen, and the state is losing 2 times. So first, we did not support the IDPs, and in the future, we understand that we can bring back this money. And as for the military administrations, whose territories are occupied and the budgets are hundreds of millions of hryvnias, and why the Ministry of Finance is not cutting down their budget. So it's kind of, we have the strange system for the utility bills and like utilities and the IDPs. So you see, you came to answer one question and you have to answer 4 questions. So I do feel your pain and I do understand that we have foreseen this kind of category for state as expenditures for humanitarian assistance for the affected population, and we consider that it should be the subject to compensation. So it depends on the compensation board, but I will insist for these to be included in the compensation list. But the state has to have the database of these kind of expenditures to understand that, for example, this individual got the payments and they cannot get this money from the international register. So the state is going to apply for that. But if one will say that the state paid me this much, and after that, I was considered the IDP and the government was not paying me, in this case, this person can apply to the register. So once again, that is a question of the financing. The applications will not be happening. So we have applied for 2 years bill, and we will get the very small amounts as a compensation. So that's not for the state. ESPO is not assigning anything to the state companies or to the state. It does it for the individuals. We have applied to the International Court of the UN, and the latest resolution of the UN court means that we will not grant the reparation. So therefore, we do not have the international official body where we can apply. And that was the reason why we decided to establish this register. And that is, this information. So we need the executive branch of power, which has to apply, and this application has to be uploaded to the register, and that should be the next category. But nevertheless, we have to understand that the fund will be also limited, and if we are saying that we are oriented on the Russian assets, around 128 billion hryvnias, it will not be enough. And so far we have 486 billion. And I think that the Commission will have some kind of prioritization. Some money will be the first wave of payments, and something will be in the second wave of payments. And now we need to understand whether all these assets will be given to us at the same time or in a few stages. The partners hope that the Russian Federation will understand what they are doing and that they will start doing everything themselves. But we have no such hope. But nevertheless, the partners expect that something like Iraq or Kuwait scenario will happen when Iraq was paying 30% of the income from oil to this fund. So we do not know what will happen in the end in this fund and how Ukraine will be able to compensate this money. But the fact that Ukraine will be able to apply for the compensation, well, we will try to do our best for it to happen. Dear colleagues, as for the question of IDP payments, we have a strict decision, and we would like to ask the President of Ukraine to have a meeting on the relevant questions of the IDPs. Please, Darina Marchak. On the question of accountability, so you heard that we had lots of deputies raising this question. That is recording of the evidences for all the people who were affected by the military aggression of the Russian Federation could have chance to get the compensation. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank Ms. Irina for a very systematic explanation on how international configuration and the measures undertaken by Ukraine is happening on the compensation through the international register of the damaged assets. And we as a ministry will work on creating the mechanisms for the people to be able to prove their non-material non-financial losses. So as you have heard, one of the first category which was considered by the register, that is the property. The property losses. When we were talking to the members of the board of the International Register, they were quite honest, and they said that the only reason why they decided to start working with these categories as a first one is that we already had this kind of register. And in fact, the Minister of Infrastructure in the very beginning of the full-scale of war initiated just by the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers the establishment of this kind of register. And after it was established by the decree and launched, this register was mentioned in supported by the legislation, but it also became nowadays the tool of verification of the applications applied by the citizens to the international register. And due to the fact that so far we do not have the register of property losses, we cannot launch the mechanism of support and of application of the citizens and due to the fact that we do not have this kind of register, it makes the process longer and more difficult of applying to the international register for those people who had the non-property losses. We have identified this problem more than 1 year ago, and together with a big circle of stakeholders, we developed the draft law, and this draft law as far as I understand, was mentioned by Mr. Pavlo, and the main idea of this draft law is the register of the people and who got these losses, and also the payments which have to support our citizens. That are so-called remedies, fast support, which we are providing to Ukrainians. Unfortunately, the draft law is quite long for a long time in agenda, and so far the parliament is not considering this document because they do not have the meetings, but we hope that in the nearest future it will be the part of the agenda, and it will be voted for, and together with the Council of Europe and together with the NGOs, with international, with IO, we are preparing the amends for the second hearing for this law to be registered fast and to have the draft law for the second hearing, which will happen soon. But that is technical aspect. What is important to mention when we are talking about the facts? Why do we need this register? First of all, in fact, we have lots of different registers, and each of them contains just a small part of information typically. And if one wants to apply to the International Register of for compensation because he or she, because of the attack, the members of his or her relatives uh, where this person lost some members of the family and was injured, but this person is going to collect one document from each official body separately that this person was injured, separately that this injury is can cause disability, and separately that this disability was proved, separate document to prove whether this person is affected is subject to criminal proceedings. The separate document that these loss of the member of the family was caused to the Russian aggression. So we are making this person to go through all official bodies to collect the documents and then to provide it to the international experts who are going to consider these kind of cases and to prove that these documents are valid. And therefore, the task of the register is similar to the, so we have to validate all possible data and to provide and to demonstrate the consequences of the military aggression. For example, if child lost his or her parents, in this case, we as a state have to collect together all the documents which can prove that this loss was caused by the Russian aggression. Another important thing, why this is important, why do we need the law? So today we do not have the legislation basis, and the pension fund or the doctor, they do not have the authority to relate anything with the Russian aggression. If, for example, you have a severe injury, you come to the doctor, and the doctor typically is not marking that this kind of injury or this kind of psychological trauma was caused by the war. In 2023, when we were actively working on this issue, we had the consultations with the Ministry of Healthcare to identify how many children got the category of disability due to the Russian aggression, and how many of these children have the document which proved that these children were affected by the Russian aggression. Only 3 children. In 1.5 years, only 3 children got this kind of conclusion. And even though that we have more than 1,000 injured children and more than 100 died, and that means that if we would not do our homework as a state, this person will face issues proving to the international expert that their trauma, their loss of members of the families, their migration was caused to the Russian aggression. And finally, a very important recommendation of the Council of Europe is that we have to not just calculate these losses. We have to support the person when we see that one was affected. So now people get support from the state after getting the IDP or after getting the children without parents, or after getting the document which proves disability. Before that, the state is not including one in their programs, and that is a big problem. And the Council of Europe is very honest and very directly informs us about that in their recommendation, in their report. And we agree with this. We consider that the state has to support in the framework of the social guarantees. So when we understand, when we get the information that this person has some problems, but we have to see that and we have to be able to respond that, and not just to see this, to start to see this person after this person gets some status. Therefore, all these ideas and all these homeworks are under one umbrella of the register of non-material losses. And in the law, we have the provisions on accountability. And now, understanding that the law is not moving forward, we will try to move through the decrees of the Cabinet of Ministers, even though that is more complicated from the legal point of view. But the general understanding is that we need accountability of the person affected by the war, the assistance in verification of the information. We have to do the work on collecting all possible documents and the proofs from the state and the general prosecution, the state emergency situation service, and the rest of the official bodies. And the second part is to create a system where support is provided as soon as we find out that the person has problems, and not when this person gets the status. And the last important thing which I've heard in the beginning of March, the Council of Europe and USAID made a very big conference, and we were together with Ms. Hanna Kristova, Pavlo Frolovi, and we had the international board of the losses, and one of the board members said the phrase which impressed me a lot. The phrase was that a clock is ticking. And he was very clear that if we do not have the register, which we already need, if it will appear in 1 year, then it will be too late. And now, when the international register is considered by the board, and the board is considering the next categories which have to be prioritized for consideration, the question will depend on what kind of internal registers are the most prepared one. The most prepared one is the IDP register, but from a political and human perspective, it is critically important to have to prioritize the people who lost their members of the family, the children who lost their parents, the children who got the disability. And that is a human approach. And that means that human health and life is the highest value for us as a state. And therefore, we consider that the first priority for us is to establish the register of non-material losses and the preparation of a database for these three categories. First of all, the families who lost their members of their families, and then the people who lost who got disabilities or psychological traumas. So as for psychological, that is a separate question. Physical traumas, and the third one is IDPs for the international register to be able to start working on this category this year. And all these things, all this works is to made together with the Ministries of Digitalization, with the Ministry of Economy, with IOM, with Hanna Kristova, and probably with all the possible experts we can have. And I think that all of us have the common opinion on the mechanics and the priorities. And of course, I totally support Ms. Irina on the fact that all our work has to be directed on just a moment. So let me finish. So all our work has to be oriented on all our efforts to be synchronized and to be complementary to what the international register does. And as for your comment on the IDPs, this. Dear colleagues, let's follow the agenda. Dear colleagues, I will try to explain in our project of resolution. As a second point, we have to make
Yeah, we want to speed up the decision on the register related to the people who have been affected. Please raise your hand. We can't have a quality meeting if everyone will be just speaking up. I didn't ask for questions, Irina, the one that I had, so please respect the rules of procedure. So, do we need a national register of the damage caused to the affected people? Do we need a law on that? That's a question. But as Darina said, a lot of international conferences and events ask a lot of questions, like why is the government helping to repair the damaged property in the first line, but not is helping the affected people, the people who have suffered huge physical damage, people who lost their close relatives, people who suffered from tortures. I think we still need a national register of this damage caused to people, so that on the level of the government we could prioritize this matter, because the Verkhovna Rada approved the law initiated by me and other colleagues, and this summer we are supposed to pay out the first compensations for the damage caused by to the health of the individuals, in particular the employees of the critical infrastructure, public officials, and civil officials who were injured or killed while discharging their duties, official duties. We're talking about 1,000 people now. So we are taking this step, but other groups of Ukrainians who also suffered from heavy injuries, I mean, we leave them aside, although they are no less priority for us, and they should be receiving compensations in the first line, but we don't have money for that. So if this draft law is approved, then I think the next step should include the development of a legislative framework to make sure that the government, without waiting for the reparations, to prioritize these groups of the people affected by the war. And I think we can take this step and prepare it for the first reading, because can we possibly address it on the governmental level? That's a question. If we need to pay compensation to the people who have suffered from heavy injuries or torture. I mean, we must pay them compensation. I wanted to invite Hanna Christopher to comment or to speak to us, because we have Council of Europe providing simultaneous interpretation to us, and thanks to international organizations for helping us. We couldn't go without you. Hanna Christopher, please, the floor is yours. Well, you asked Irina a question, but you want me to speak. So yes, let me offer you a couple of comments, and I'll need to leave you afterwards. I hope that Hanna can build on my statement here. The international register in no way is going to say that to be able to apply for compensation, you are supposed to be on some type of national register. No, this is only something that the Ukrainian government can do. But what we need to do is to set the clear goal of this national register and this draft law. Yes, it can be a resolution of the cabinet. And I personally don't see the need to regulate the register of affected persons on the level of law. I think we can do it on the level of the government in the form of a resolution of the government. If yes, then what is the objective of this register? What I heard from Darina is that it's going to be a complementary thing for the international register. Then it would be then correct, logical, and to understand what are going to be the requirements of this register. And we need to create then something that would be complementary to the international register instead of doing something that will not be complementary for the international register. If we need to carry out some assessment, then the question is, why do we need it? What's going to be its objective? So we are not against the establishment of any databases, but we see that it may conflict the international register in many ways. And yeah, and you say that it may be too late, but too late for what? Because the biggest damage had been caused over the past 2 years. Certainly the war continues and the material damage continues to be caused, but as to the moral, privacy, intangible, immaterial damage, I mean, how late can it be? I mean, people who suffered from social violence in Bucha in March 2022, and now we are in April 2024. What do you mean late? How late can it be? I mean, these people are either have been documented as victims or not. And how can this establishment of the National Register help them? I don't know. I need to understand the goal of the register, and if it should be complementary to the international register, it should be totally harmonized with it. So not the other way around. Well, indeed, we talk here about the maximum level of synchronization with the international register of damage, and certainly the version that has been registered is a little bit outdated. No one argues about that. But we have the task force working on that, and I'm part of that. Irina Kireva also recently joined it. She works in the secretariat of the International Register. She is also on this task force. So if we open up a category for the International Register, that's one thing, but we're talking here to make sure that, yes, we do have the harmonization, but we need to take some legislative steps if we do. And if we do, then the government needs to be involved and the parliament needs to be involved. So I totally support the idea of harmonization, but we're talking about the need for a law for that. Thanks for your opinion. Yes, actually, I want to tell to the government officials, international partners right now, and say that certainly the international register must start with the IDPs who are protecting our country today. the defenders, then the defenders who have lost their property, then the IDPs who lost the lives of their relatives and so on, and then other IDPs. I think that would be only fair, because now we are considering a mobilization bill, and we have a lot of questions on that. But how can we motivate them to go and fight the war if we don't prioritize them? I think it would be only fair that the first priority should be given to the families of people who are defending our country today. Hanna Christovo, yes, the floor goes to you now. Thank you for your attention. Mr. Chairman and participants, I must say that after such a detailed statement of Irina Romanivna and substantial comments and the explanation of the goal of the draft law from Darina, my statement might be really concise, short, but that's going to be beneficial for all of us because we have still 2 items on the agenda to cover. The first point that we need to focus on is, for your understanding, the Kyiv or Ukrainian office of the International Register will become fully operational in May. It will start to hire people because still it is a matter that need to be addressed. Now we need to understand the mission of the register. And we need, firstly, it's about cooperation with international partners on the technical level. We understand this is a very important objective. Also, awareness raising activities also belong to its agenda. And without the participation and active involvement of our partners, we can't expect the International Register to be fully functional. The local communities and local authorities need to be involved into the activities as well, because we're talking about the damage caused to local communities and the affected individuals. Individuals and legal entities in the longer run. They are also to belong to those 44 categories of people about which the International Register will contain information. We'll still need to understand what kind of decisions the register will make and will not make. Irina said today that any decisions on the size of compensation, it is the matters that the Compensation Commission will address, and the payments will be provided from the compensation fund. But the register will decide on the eligibility of application. So the register will decide whether indeed the application is eligible, whether indeed the damage was caused to the individual within the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine. This is one of the major points I want to make here, because our MPs who sit on the TSC raised this matter several times today, but Maxim has been doing it for many years. I mean the damage caused on the occupied territory and the property that remained on the occupied territory, and including the property owned by the IDPs, and the damage caused to the legal entities as to the property, lack of access to the property and other assets on the occupied territory. As of today, the categories 1 and 2, for individuals and legal entities, and in terms of the loss of access to their property, everything is eligible and they can apply. Our main tool is going to be the reference to the website of the register that's available in 3 languages: English, French, and Ukrainian. And it has today clear infographics and explanations. And we only started. Certainly, we have a lot of work ahead of us once the applications are submitted. And if you monitored all these matters related to the applications, you would see that now we're talking about the housing that has been already assessed, but in the future the register will be open for other housing that has not been assessed yet, in particular the assets located on the occupied territory, which means that the international register has been listening to the Ukrainian government, talking to the Ukrainian government, and to the affected individuals, because indeed, for many months, even several years, we've been talking about these issues. So to wrap it up, the damage caused to the individuals, legal entities, government within the internationally recognized borders, but since 24th of February 2022. That means, and that's actually is related to the goal of national registers, because we talk here about the following questions: who is going to document, assess, and support those individuals who had been affected by the first wave of the armed aggression that started back in 2014? So this matter is related today to the need to at least register this damage in Ukraine. And the criteria number 4 of eligibility of the international register is the fact that the damage must be caused by the illegal actions of Russia. We can't forget about this important issue when we talk about the compensations. And certainly the applications must not be clearly unsubstantiated, which means that collecting evidence is the home assignment, homework for Ukraine to do. And no international partner, no international register is going to do it instead of Ukraine. Certainly, they can provide support, assistance for investigations, just like helping us with war crimes and so on. International crimes and so on, but it is up to us to register the crimes and register the damage. That's our home task. The Ukrainian registered one thing, but the Kyiv office will be based in the office of the Council of Europe in Ukraine, in Kyiv, which means that it is the Council of Europe that has provided the platform for that, and through the enlarged additional agreement. But the cooperation with international partners, other international partners, and civil society in Ukraine is a first priority task for us. As to the national registration system and what we've been talking about here today, certainly the formulation of the draft law 1056 registered today must be reviewed substantially. But as I understand, all the stakeholders have shared the understanding that it is needed, and we need to prepare the text that will be in line with all international requirements, with international register, with the categories of damage that are included into the international register. But this draft law the draft law includes a couple of other points that are longer term, like loss of access to education, loss of access to medical services, and other matters. Like the affected individuals, do they have to collect information about that? And if that's going to be compatible with international register? That's a question, but this is something that we've been discussing already today. I mean, the affected people, civilians who have suffered damage to their life, health, only part of them are victims under criminal proceedings and are covered by this 125,000 proceedings, the number that is given by the Office of General Prosecutor. But even they say that at best, only 50% of people have the status of victim.
The state register does not allow to take the information and to use it for the international register. So this function is not available, and therefore the initiatives on creating, on establishing on the level of the prosecutor general of the register of people who were affected by the war, or the register with broader information, or in the future, that is like the creation, the establishment of these register is an important stand, which on the national level can make the work of the international register faster and easier. And from the other hand, on the other hand, it will help to establish emergency response measures. And in this case, and that will be the end of my speech. Thank you very much. The Council of Europe was emphasizing for many times, both in the expert report, which we're very glad that our partners have already seen. We have the examples of the support programs that should not be only financial support, I insist, and that are the programs of support for different categories of people, not only the IDPs, that are the missing person, that are the imprisoned people. So Ukraine does a lot and pays a lot of money from the state budget. The part of them are from the budget. So the question is that some certain categories which were the most affected and who faced the biggest loss, whose fundamental rights were violated, who were tortured, sometimes they are out of our attention. Thank you very much. So that's so the question is really complicated, and we can talk for a long time. Thank you, the head of. Thank you. So, dear colleagues, let's move to the next question. I would like to thank the project of Council of Europe for their support on creation, on establishment of the register of losses, and we do understand that the content of these register, the budget of this register will be supported by our partners and by the other countries. And we were saying that Ukraine, that the aggressor state has to be charged for the losses caused in Ukraine, and these kind of actions is a kind of restricting measure for the Russian Federation, and also in the future for the other states which might be willing to follow their way. And here, in this case, we have to show that military aggression can lead to big consequences, can lead to a high price paid after the war. And therefore, we would like to ask on the representative of Council of Europe about, we would like to ask about the support on our document on so that Ukrainian judges who are working in Ukraine, that their decision could be fulfilled not only on the territory of Ukraine with the assets of the Russian Federation, but also in the other states which belong to the European Union and all around the world. That is going to be a kind of very strong restricting measure and a strong enhancement of the responsibility of the aggressor state. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, in fact, we have raised lots of questions, and I think that we have lots of questions to be discussed today. Dear colleagues, I have just one request. Let's respect each other, but let's follow the agenda. Because we can talk a lot, and in this case, we will lose our focus. So just one moment. I would like to suggest to move to some concrete cases. And if possible, I would like to ask everyone who can stay. We can finish in 35 minutes. With all of my respect to all the registers, to the Minister of Finances, to all the officials and official authorities which we have, we're canceling something. For example, Lysychansk military administration, they spent 135 million. They buy the share, they buy the children's camp, and now we will hear why do they buy this children's camp. So let's discuss it. That is a very good question. Finally, so we have a concrete case. So while we are looking for money, while we are discussing all of these things, it is very important, but we have some cases, and we say that we do not have money. We say that we need to cut the expenditures, but some people get as much money as they need. Some people are under occupation for 2 years, and they are all around Ukraine where they feel better. They are getting salaries, they spend their money, and that's it. So let's discuss these and the rest. Okay, let's talk about it. It's important, of course, it's important. We cannot see what is on the surface and the thing which people see, and people do not see what we were discussing, and people do not hope to see all of these things. But when they hear and when they see that that some authorities, they just do not care about them, and they are buying the camp for 4 children. But like, let's listen to them. And with all of these, Lysychansk military administration is procuring it for Kirovogradsk military administration to make it their property and to send the people they want to send there. But they've spent 50 million. Sorry, it's not clear. Please unmute yourself. Please raise your hand, and I will ask. I'm raising the hand, and you're not giving me the floor. But another person was speaking. But I raised my hand after. Okay, please finish. And I also want to say, so we're talking about identifying the affected people. Mr. Pavlo, I want also the floor. So we will not discuss the main thing. So all of these things, so who did we invite? We have invited the law enforcement, we have invited the military administrations. The military administration, it's on the level of the national. So we have up to 100 people, and they hear even all of these things, even with all this interpretation. Can you hear me, or you can't hear me at all? Ms. Hanna, can I ask a quick question? Can you hear me? How can we make the process of this process faster? The solution on the national level is made by the international partners. So the Council of Europe supports everything that is directed to which has to enhance the affected population. That is a clear answer. And as for the text, the registered text so with a significant improvement of the text. Mr. Alexander, are you going to take the floor? Mr. Pavlo, can you hear me? Mr. Maxim was mentioning Maxim Lysychanska military administration, which is under occupation for 2 years. And I remember June 2022, when we were evacuating people from Lysychansk, we were looking for Haidai. And at the same time, in Bakhmut, the deputy head of military administration and the representatives of the Lysychansk city administration at that time were not there at all, meaning that they were not just under occupation. When the occupation was not even happening, they were somewhere in the unknown place. Dear colleagues, let's move to the Mr. Nekludov. Yes, can you hear me? Yes, please, but please a bit louder because we cannot hear you clearly. Dear colleagues, what is happening? This case, the fact of spending crazy money by the military administration of Lysychansk, they 35 million, 15 million for the repairs. Mr. Vadim, we are considering the second question of our agenda about to verify discussion on the situation surrounding the purchase. So we will give you the floor, the registration of war affected individuals and documenting losses as a prerequisite for the introduction of mechanism for support and payment of reparations for damage caused by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine. So as for the registration of war affected individuals and documenting losses as a prerequisite for the introduction of mechanisms for support and payment of reparation for damage caused by Russian Federation aggression against, as a result, the Commission decided first, to establish consolidated national system of management of databases or a single register database of affected people were affected individuals whose rights were violated by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine by comprehension and systematized exchange of information between the existing registers, information resources, and databases, which include the information about different categories of people affected by the war of the Russian Federation in Ukraine. The next principle, the synchronization with the register of the war-affected individuals and or by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine as a first component of the compensation mechanism, which is not limited by the requirements to the evidence database, and the applications can be applied to the international register were affected individuals by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine. The prioritization of the war-affected individuals and their house due to the fact of the Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine, forming the register of the war-affected individuals, and also provision by the state, by the government of Ukraine, registration and documenting the losses of the individual caused by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine, but due to different reasons do not have the status of affected people and the evidences of losses. So the next clause, provision of documentation of losses who were affected by the war by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine since 2014. The next principle, the further implementation of the mechanism of support for the individuals the most affected by Russian aggression against Ukraine according to the priorities and the stages of provision of these kind of support of the implementation principle with the further compensation of the expenses of the expenditures of Ukraine according to the compensation mechanism. The last principle is the documentation and registration of the assistance provided by the programs which were affected by the war, by the Russian war in Ukraine. The second point, it making the process, the registration 10.256, the draft law on the identifying the war affected individuals caused by Russian Federation against Ukraine, and it's a significant improvement according to the above-mentioned principles and recommendations of national and international human rights organization. And considering the discussion, I would like to add here that as a temporary decision before the consideration of the draft law will be done, let's consider the single register of non-material losses according to the decree on the pilot of these losses. The third point, to suggest the Ministry of Healthcare to start documenting the injuries caused by the weapon among the people who contact the healthcare system. The fourth is to contact the Cabinet of Ministers and to implement the national system of documenting of losses caused by Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine to the individuals. Unfortunately, we did not discuss it, and also the losses of the transport means, mobile means, and in this case, we need to develop the classificator of the mobile property. The fifth, to contact the Ministry of Justice of Ukraine and the Ministry of Digitalization of Ukraine to provide the written report on the launch of the international register as a component of the international compensation mechanism, and also according to the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers as of the 1st December 2023 on the provision and then the name. The decision of the Commission to send the Cabinet of Ministers, the General Prosecutor's office, because we were suggesting that, and the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Social Policy, the Ministry of Healthcare, the Ministry of Digital Transformation. And dear colleagues, let's vote for this decision. Yes, Mr. Alexander, I would like to mention that the prioritization on the compensation has to be identified according to the fact that, for example, the families with the militaries. And where do you want to add it? For the compensation, in the framework of the international mechanism, in the framework of all the mechanism. So the international one is controlled by the international law, whatever so we can recommend it. The representative of the Council of Europe can identify that as the priority that the family who has the militaries in their family. So, Mr. Alexander, the international mechanism is not regulating this kind of thing. So it is regulated by the international law. We cannot recommend anything because there is the expanded agreement of the Council of Europe, and we have joined it, and it concerns the national system of the support, and we can say that it has to be there, but in this text, let's consider this question separately. And what about, we were discussing 10.256. The thing is that the categories were already approved, and the category is a big category. For example, if there are IDPs, so that means that there are all IDPs. So, and nevertheless, when the applications will be applied, they can apply through D. And who are prioritized? So the family where the husband is at war or somewhere abroad. That is not the payment. That is documenting the losses, and it happens at the same time. And well, the register would like to prioritize or wouldn't like that. It doesn't matter. So the first one who will press the button will be prioritized. But we as a state have to understand this importance. I think that you mean like when the commission will be created to recommend the commission during consideration. Yes, maybe that is a good offer. Thank you. Well, but nevertheless, we do not have the International Compensation Commission. That is a second stage of implementation. Mr. Alexander, let's consider these questions separately and let's form it to make it legally accurate, not to cover the authorities we have no expertise for. Dear colleagues, Mr. Alexander, do you agree? Let's discuss it when we will revise the question on prioritization, when we will have it in our agenda. Thank you, dear colleagues. Let's vote. What was mentioned? Let's vote for the TSC decision. Positive. Підлічна за, Арсенюк за, Неклюдов. Positive. In Zoom, on Zoom, Неклюдов, Величко, Величкович, positive. Козир за. Козир, positive. Yes, can you hear us? I think we have 3 people on Zoom, and here we have 8 people. And we also have 9 people. 3 plus 9, 12 people positive. Against, didn't vote. The decision made. Thank you, dear colleagues. We haven't finished the consideration. Luckily, we do not have technical problems, and the acting Minister of Social Policy is with us. Darina Marchak, we have started discussing the first question and the current situation with the payments.
Unfortunately, we prepared kind of a harsh decision, I would say, for you to hear. So we reduced by $500 million of dollars the amount of support year on year. Although the number of IDPs is growing, but we failed to find resources and we failed to persuade the international partners to make sure that in 2024 the funding to support the IDPs that we pay 2,000 or 3,000 hryvnias a month, which is much smaller than the rent of any house in Ukraine. So we reduced the amount of the support by a quarter in the public budget. But now in March, according to the governmental decision, the number of the recipients has gone down by a factor of 4. While in January and February, we had like 2,500 recipients. Now we have much 2.5 million people. Now we have much more. Much less in terms of yes, in terms of the actual numbers. And what we needed to do really is to amend the legislation so that we have the cut of only by 1 million, but the actual cut was by 4 billion. So if we keep going like that, we will certainly have huge savings in the budget, but still a lot of IDPs who didn't receive the support. And this system of payment, it doesn't work well because there are so many people who are totally entitled to get the support, still fail to receive it because some failures in the system or some miscalculations. A lot of people with disabilities and pensioners, they don't get this this assistance. So, Darina, please take the floor, because we're supposed to protect IDPs, right? But what we hear from our people, we can't say it's actual protection. So tell us why there has been such a dramatic cut, like by a factor of 4. 4.8 billion have been saved already, and still we need to think about our IDPs. We need to protect them and to create this unified register or informational database that would inform the government about everything, so that the IDPs don't need to file many applications and see huge red tape. So all the objectives that were set to the government and Ministry of Social Policy, they were set for 2023. Now we're in 2024, second quarter, and unfortunately, we have a lot of problems. It's a tragedy, really, that we warned you about back in January. So please take the floor. All right, thank you for the floor. Certainly, we won't have this trend in the future. Definitely, we'll have something on the positive side. Let's talk numbers here to see what's actually is happening and why there was such a huge change in such small numbers. According to our calculations, and according to the changes, not for the provision of the initial support for the first 6 months, but for prolongation. What I mean, the people who had been receiving the support for 6 months, a year and a half. So the payments were supposed to stop for them, but we extended them for 6 months, but with 2 components. First, we automatically prolong them for people who obviously will not be able to work, pensioners or people with disabilities. Second, these are the people who received individual payments, like wife, her own payment, husband, another payment, so on. And our general rule is that we provide support for household. So those who will not receive the prolongation automatically, we ask them to come and according to the Council of Europe recommendation and the World Bank's recommendation and the recommendation of other international and Ukrainian experts, we introduced the targeted approach. We need to take into account the actual families, their monetary conditions, so on. So some of our nationals had to reapply. So what were the indicators that we used to analyze the recipients as of January and February and March? Our assessment following the reassessment said that we were supposed to have at least 1.7 million recipients, with 433,000 of them who received the automatic prolongation of the support, about 51,000 also the people with disabilities who received automatic prolongation. So altogether 480,000. So just under 1 million of the IDPs had the right to receive the support, but they had to reapply. the aggregate expenses were supposed to be 4.2 billion hryvnia, according to our estimates. But the actual picture was as follows. The number of people who automatically received prolongation was much higher. We planned it would be 480,000, but automatically we had 535,000 people who received automatic prolongation. So like 15% of our expectation. But those that had to reapply for the support, there was a reduction of them, but not because they lost the right. This is the key point. They have the right, but they had to reapply, but people just didn't reapply on time. They started doing that with huge delays. As of the 12th of March, so from the 1st of January, we gave them time to reapply for the support. So starting from the from 1st of February until the 12th March, there were only 60,000 people who reapplied. From the 12th of March until the 1st of April, we have 192,000 families who reapplied. Starting from the 1st of April until the 10th of April, we have today. So tomorrow we will have updated information from our regions. But as of the data we have now, the number of applications has been much bigger. So those people who received payments in March, that includes 535,000 that received the prolongated support, and 181,000 who received the payments following their reapplication. How many men or that can be conscribed did apply? I will tell you about that later. As of the 1st of April, we had another 98,000 applications still in progress. If we calculate in terms of actual people, that would be like 200,000 people. So only 380,000 people altogether who reapplied, and our calculations was 1.4 million. So we believe that these additional people who have not reapplied will. So now our social agencies are working hard to accept the application so that people don't get worried. They submit the application is registered, and then there is a decision on the eligibility. This is the key point. We had at least 98,000 applications still in progress, and I believe that we'll have another 100,000 of them submitted in April. We believe that all those people who are entitled to receive the payments will get the payments they're entitled to. So we will reach to the numbers that we put into the budget, not 1.6 billion, but 4.2 billion. But there is one but, frankly speaking, and this but is about the following. There are a lot of families, in particular women, they don't mention their husbands, and that's coming to your question. As of now, I don't have the breakdown by men who are of draftable age, who can be drafted. 60% are female, only 40% are male, which is if we talk about IDPs, we used to have 50-50. Now we have only 40% of men, even 33% of men. And as a result, the families where the wife comes and reapplies, she fails to mention her husband. We see on the register that she has a husband, they're not divorced, and there is no other information. Then she becomes ineligible for the support. I think everyone understands the reason why women do not mention their husbands when they apply those applications. So there are two major trends. The number of people who are going to receive the support, the numbers will be much higher than those 618,000 we have to know. How many? Tomorrow we will have information from Region. So on Friday I will have updated info for you about the numbers of applications that have been processed. We still have whole April for those applications. But if you apply in April and the application is processed in May, still you are going to have the you're going to receive the money for May and April and March. So in April we will be able to give you an update information, or more clear and more accurate information will be available in May. As to the register, and this is something that Ms. Irina told you about, the IDP register is one of the most complete ones. And now when a person comes to us, we check it out, this register, and we can see whether they have a wife or husband, whether they have jobs, whether they are registered with the unemployment center, whether they get pension, whether they have disability status. So this database of the IDPs as recipients of the national support, it's integrated with a huge number of registers. But the thing is, we still have a lot of unreliable data in the register. I mean, the names can be misspelled. Somewhere it says Olena or Alona. And another point is related to people with disabilities, the one that you just raised. One of the most typical problems is that let's say the person knows that he or she has a disability, but the register doesn't have this information. So like the pension fund has information that the person has the disability of class 3 and other registers, but if you know that you have disability of class 2 or class 1, you need to bring the document for us to know about that, but people don't do that. Another problem that we had in the regions was technical ones. Mostly it's about the IDPs were packaged, let's say. Yeah, they were grouped on some basis, but we managed to sort it out already, so I won't bother you with that. So I understand why you are concerned. And so we are concerned as well. And we believe that the huge number of IDPs who are not receiving the support according to the current rules and they're eligible to that, to address the problem, they just need to show up at centers for administrative services. And we see the numbers are increasing, but sorry, over the first 2 months, when they were supposed to do that, they didn't. They were not just thinking about that. But for us, it is important to see the incomes of the household or the family and provide the support only to those who need it the most. And unfortunately, we can't, as a government, help absolutely everyone. We need to prioritize our expenses. And now the question, how many social benefit recipients do we have in the country? I don't think you know. We have 9.5 million recipients of social support, but most of them are living at home. Please understand the difference. Please understand the difference. Sorry, there is no sound. No one has sound. Sorry, the sound is off.
Sergey Kozary, so you have said that 2.5, not 164 billion. It should have been according to our calculation. That is what we have predicted according to the data presented in the registers when we were presenting these decrees. So according to our calculation, 1.7 million of recipients. Yes, but why? We, in fact, 2 million out of 2.5 which received, why we have suggested them this according to the application principle? Why do we need it? People do not know about it. The people who are pensioners with minimum income who have the right to get this money. By the way, did they receive the SMS? So we do it automatically. We continue to mainly what I mentioned. We have the calculation according to the registers, 480 people. And after the checks with the pension fund, 535 um, assistance was prolongated. But why do we need this application principle? People do not know about it. Maybe they will find out in June. And once again, you will postpone this topic. And the second question, you were saying that the biggest register, almost 5 million of IDPs, just IDPs. So did they get 2 million, those of them who had to apply, did these 2 million people at least, did they receive at least SMS that they have to apply? That is a normal thing to do. So all of them are IDPs. They were leaving their contacts. So you could have informed them in this way. People do not know about these things. People, they just think that the state did not give them this money, that the parliament did not give this money, and that are the money for the most vulnerable ones, for the poorest ones. So the things which we can see in the regions, that is just horrible. At least SMS. And why we in fact cannot, I'm very sorry, I'm very emotional as well, why we can't do everything at the same time for the state to understand who, and to decrease from 2 million to at least 500,000 or 100,000 people of the number of people who have to go and to the centers with applications, because due to the fact, because to assign the assistance, we have to see the members of the family. And very typically, in the state registers, the information can be we might be lacking some information. The second thing, when the person is applying with the application, we are using the mechanism of verification of the income mechanism. We use the verification mechanism, if you remember, when in September, we were prolongating the assistance automatically. And at that point, we were warning people that the assistance is provided for 6 months. And when we are saying that people didn't know that the changes will happen, it's not correct, because when we were reassigning these assistants, we were informing them that that is a last payment for 6 month payment. The second thing is that we were in the contact, and most IDPs are not providing the emails and the phone numbers, and that is a problem. And therefore, we were working with NGOs in the regions to inform the IDPs. But of course, unfortunately, we cannot provide 100% guarantees that the message is delivered. But when we have the application, when we get the application, we can see the members of the household. And for example, if the wife doesn't live with the husband and the husband is registered as the husband of this wife, in this case, the wife has to inform about it. And the wife has to inform why she doesn't live with the husband, for us not to include in the family, in the household. So the main reason why we're asking to make the application is to see the real members of the household, and to maybe not to include some of the members in the income calculations, and maybe these people will not get the assistance. Or for example, in some cases, so they will get the assistance. For example, if we do not see a grandmother as a member of the household, but nevertheless we have to understand that the assistance has to be provided for her as well. Ms. Darina, how were you informing when you were prolongating the assistance, how you were informing the beneficiaries and the people who were leaving the phone numbers? Did you send the messages to them, at least in this way? Because people do not know about this. People are so stressed at the fact that the things you were telling 6 months ago, they just forgotten it. They are just thinking how to survive, where to live, and what to eat. It's like they do not remember, and at the end it appears to be that you expect them to make the note that they will lose the assistance in 6 months, but we are meeting the people in the sites. Mr. Pavlo, I'm very sorry. People really remember that I work with the beneficiaries regularly. We had another question on how you were informing the people and who is responsible for this process, for informing the people. So how you were doing that and who is responsible for informing the people? We have a few channels of informing. The first channel is automatical emails for those IDPs who have provided their emails. Unfortunately, the number of the IDPs who have emails whose emails is mentioned is very low. And also we have to understand why it is so low, because most of the IDPs who were coming to us in March, April 2023, and even 2022, and who get assistance even now, they were not leaving any kind of contact. And as I would mention, we are using a few tools. The second channel, in the cases when we have phone numbers, the centers were calling the IDPs and informing them if the phone numbers are available. The third channel is a general informing in media and through the social security services. And otherwise, if we do not have the contacts in this case, we do not have that many options to contact this person and to inform that this person has to apply once again. And the last things I would like to say, therefore, we are making the amends to the decree, and all the applications made to the state for the assistance, so we are asking the emails and the phone numbers, because what we faced is the fact that we cannot reach the person because we do not have their personal data, their contacts. Sergey Kozar, please, the floor is yours. Thank you, Mr. Pavlo. The first question, Mr. Sergey, we can barely hear you. Can be a bit louder. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you now. Ms. Darina, the question, where is the minister? Where is the minister, Ms. Darina? The minister is in Kyiv, and by the way, I wanted to say that I'm not an acting minister yesterday, and today I'm not the acting minister, and tomorrow I'm going to be the acting minister again. She doesn't respect us. Why doesn't she come? She is doing her job. The invitation was for me, and I came. I've heard you. Okay, it's clear if the invitation was issued for you. So the invitation was personally for me. So I was informing you, and we were informing that the minister is invited to this meeting. At least you came here and not the head of the department. Well, I have another question to Ms. Darina. What kind of measures do we undertake for the centers of administrative services for those who were not accepting applications? So from you, I heard that people didn't want to come fast, but nevertheless, I have lots of claims that people were coming to the centers, but the centers didn't know what to do and what to say. That is the first question. The second question, Mr. Pavlo, could you provide me with the recording, Ms. Darina? I will be saying in Kherson that they have to provide the emails to get the payments. And also, could you provide me with the official letter? Could you provide me the information on who they were contacting, who they were calling, and please provide us with a link to the public announcement on informing the publics on the payments. And the question, who is going to be responsible for the people with disabilities of the first and second group that they did not get the assistance. And now I hear from you that they have to come and to apply. So there is the document which says that people have to get these payments automatically. And who is going to be responsible for these people not getting their payments? And also another question, more than 50 billion in the budget for the IDPs, and now we can see the cut downs. And where are you going to redirect this money? Because we are going to vote for this. Maybe there are more important things we have to know about this. If you have this information, please, could you provide us with this information? I'm not quite sure that I heard correctly all the questions because the sound is in fact not that good, but I will try to answer those of them which I've heard. The first, as for the emails, we are not going to redirect anything. Only the first quarter is over. We have 3 quarters, 9 months ahead. And we did not, and we cannot plan, we cannot understand how many IDPs we will have in the future. And therefore, we are not planning to redirect these funds. And if we will see, for example, the significant improvement of the situation or worsening of the situation, we will take it into account. The second question, who is going to be responsible for not all of the people with disabilities getting automatic prolongation? In each case, that is going to be theoretically. I will explain why. So why the automatic prolongation didn't take place? So if it is a problem of the person and the person was not providing the documents for what kind of documents have to be provided for automatic provision. So the automatic prolongation will happen for the people, for the persons with disabilities of the first and second group. So we have lots of groups, categories of people whose payments should be prolongated. So what kind of documents should they have provided? So you're not listening to me, and I will not be able to explain to you if you're not listening to me. The person is the person with disability. The person is sending me the message that I'm the person with disability with the second group. Why you didn't prolongate my payments automatically? So we go to the system, and in this system, we can see that the person has third group of disability. With this document, this person cannot get the automatic prolongation. Are you mocking me? I'm talking about the first and second group. You think that I'm just crazy? I have asked you the question, the people who should have got their prolongation automatically. I'm not going to talk to you if you're going to shout at me. Why you're telling me these kind of things? I'm not offending you. Please answer your questions. Why are you manipulating? The question is direct. We have the recording, please. The first group. Why are you talking about the third one? So you get some message about the message received. Dear colleagues, we have to start with what we started. Tomorrow, I'm taking the letters to fire the Minister of Social Policy. For the country is just mocking at people. So we have a petition registered on the website of the president. Well, that is, dear colleagues, let's come back to the topic, to our discussion. Dear colleagues, if we have these kind of cases when the first and second group persons with disability didn't get the payments, and if we have the people who are the elderly people, that is an awful situation. The people who lost housing, who lost their lives, and they cannot get health, they cannot get this money, this small money, that's horrible. But I have additional question. Today, yesterday, the group I was leaving Lysychansk with, they are from Kyiv. They did not return from the battles in Chasiv Yar. What do you think as a state? Is it okay that there are people who are from Chasiv Yar village and from Lysychansk town and who are not fighting but get assistance from the state as IDP? Is it reasonable for us as men to get something as if they have these kind of attitude to their state? Thank you. Wow, that is a complicated issue. And I think that is a thing which is better to discuss with your colleagues from the parliament who think that we have to pay to everyone at any case. What do? We consider that all the people who can work have to be registered in the centers of employment centers who have to work, because if you know, we are providing the information that the person is working, and if the person is unemployed, in this case, the centers, the military commissariats are informed. From our side, we as a state and we as a legal state, we are relying on the constitution. We cannot be providing assistance to those people who are in need. But there is another question. If we are providing the assistance to the people who are in need, in this case, we have to stimulate these people to become economically independent, to fulfill their obligations for the state. And the mechanics which we're using in these programs is that the people who can work, they should be registered in the unemployment centers, in the job centers, and the state has the information about these people. These people lost housing and the war isn't going, but we still cannot understand that the war isn't going and we are supporting those who do not want to serve. Well, to say that they do not want to serve in the army, we need this person to receive the notification from the military commission. And as Minister of Social Policy, we do not know who get this kind of notification, but we know for sure when we have the adult man who gets social assistance, then the state through their registers have to know about these men. And as a separate question, I'm ready to discuss it with you. If the state is providing the information about those people who can be mobilized, in this case, if the official bodies will inform us that these people are not fulfilling their obligation, And in this case, we can sanction these people. So far, we did not get this kind of information. No one is saying that someone is against being legalization. Mr. Kozer, your question? I have another question. In the beginning of our session, I'm very sorry, maybe I will be loud, but the sound is not very good. Our colleague from Mariupol was asking who invented the standard 9,400 hryvnia pension when people from Mariupol, from Luhansk, from Donetsk, and also people who were working on in a hard condition, they have higher pensions. Was it made with intention, with some certain intention by the state to limit these people that are the people who were IDPs? Could you answer this question? So the total number of the pensioners we have in Ukraine, that is 10.5 million people. 6 million pensioners get, unfortunately, the pension, which is lower than 4,000 hryvnias. 9,400 something hryvnias is comparably, comparing to the rest of the pensioners, is very high. It is not that high as, for example, 20,000 hryvnias, and we have pensioners who have 20,000 hryvnias pensions, but comparing to the mean, to the average, that is the pension which is 1.5 times higher than the average pension in Ukraine. And how did we get this number, 9,444? I'm really glad that only I am considered to be the initiator on the amendments to the IDP laws, but unfortunately, and that's not me who is making this decision. The governmental decisions are made by the government, and all the each and every decree on the IDP is developed. Who was applying this decree? Who is the subject of the subject? The Ministry of Social Policy, but the Ministry of Social, you have answered your question, but the Ministry of Social Policy is suggesting only those decrees which are approved by the Vice Minister, and also if the rest of the ministers if the ministers did not support this decision, this decree is not suggested. I have a question. Can I finish what I was started to speak? I would like to comment. I will interrupt you. 9,444, that is number. If we consider the 4-member household, in this case, this number is it is a salary of 2 people, which is 2 times higher than the average one, meaning that the IDP household, which has the average level of salaries in Ukraine, will not be. The sound was lost.
So this is something that our people receive in our country. So to continue getting the payment, a family with 4 children must have 36 hryvnia. Okay, this is a lot. We have Volker as representative of the Ombudsman office. I want to bring your attention to the fact that we are approaching it in a similar way to all of to everyone. Yeah, like the minors, pensioners. First, people lose their health, and then the Ministry of Social Policy believes that they have the right to determine which pension is big, which is not. Can we please sort it out? Because I don't understand this logic. People lost their health, especially those who worked in big businesses. Now they're kind of losing their pensions. Was it a question? No, it's a rhetorical one. Darina, I'm gonna comment now. Can we move on to the motion? So the motion regarding the internally deployed persons. First, we insist that the dramatic decrease in numbers of IDPs who receive the payments from the government by a factor of 4 is unacceptable. It breaches the resolution of the government. The plans also breach the decree of the President of Ukraine. Point number 2, to the Prime Minister to take urgent actions to make the to help the IDPs and in particular make the decision to automatically prolong the payments to the individuals who used to receive it in 2022, 2023. To improve the software, the database, create the accounts, internet accounts for the recipients to be able to fill out the database with all the necessary information that entitles the IDP for the receipt of payments without a need to reapply. Number 3, there is a need to carry out a separate session on IDPs. I invite international partners to a separate session of the TSC to address the urgent matter of provision of assistance to the IDPs, in particular housing benefits, so that we could increase the number of recipients who are entitled and who need support. To the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada and other leaders, we suggest register a document with Verkhovna Rada that sets clear criteria for the payments to stop. Next point, consider appropriate amendments that regulate the establishment of the IDP database. To the Prime Minister of Ukraine, to approve the measures related to establishment of criteria for the eligibility of IDPs for payments. I want to talk a little bit about social justice.
We don't mind, but cutting down and saving it, it's like a bit different. It doesn't work in this way. Sergey, Mr. Sergey, what do you mean about the people with disabilities? We need to formulate it somehow. So how can we describe it? We have to provide the information uh, and how many people comparing to December did not receive automatically pensions in March? Who was that? Who was that? And if it was automatically made, okay, what did we do to mitigate the risks? And if it is some certain specialist or the head of the department, then I want to see the surname of this person. And if this person should not get their salary as well. So this person in this case has to leave to have the same conditions. And speaking of this meeting, they can use this meeting and they can do it as well as most of the ministries can do. So we can form it in this way and we can create minutes. If I understood you correctly, please hear me. You suggest to add the draft of decision separately that we can request the number of the people who should have been whose payments should have been automatically prolongated, meaning that the ones who meet the requirements of Decree 322 for automatical prolongation, but the system did not prolongate everything, their payments automatically. And you want to know the number of these people and who is responsible for these people not getting their payments. Did I understand you correctly? Yes. What do you think about this idea? So I think that the system, could you repeat, please? In your case, what you've called the system is the name of the person who made these mistakes. So we have to identify the number and to understand who is responsible for that. Mr. Pavlo, I would like to add a bit. We have to pay back the money to the people who have the right for these payments, to automatically restore these payments. Okay, so dear colleagues, what do you think about these? On this question. Positive. Okay, so as an idea, we will work on it. We will agree on this document and we will add it to our decision. Mr. Alexander, well, as for the support of Mr. Sergey and Mr. So we mentioned 9 million in the budget and alternatives have to fulfill the budget. As far as I understand, if the payments are made to the judges, retired judges or someone else, but for example, men get the money, but the boards, men who can be mobilized and the judges who can be mobilized. So that are so, dear friends, when you will finally understand that the war is ongoing and these people just not lost their housing, they just lost the way of life they had, they lost their life. So you go on the sites and you can see where do they live. They live in very bad conditions and so how many millions can we get from the judges? So that are the legal initiatives. So that let's discuss these kind of things. So Mr. Pavlo, let's take down the first deputy of the minister said that she supports the idea of no, I didn't say that. I said that these kind of things can be discussed only by the parliament. We can suggest where we can suggest the options. How can we redistribute the resources? So we can suggest it. I suggest to write your offer on the ways of fulfilling the budget. So let's vote finally. The meeting of the committee, the minimum and the maximum wage. So we are not discussing the minimum one is 3,061 and the highest cap. So dear colleagues, let's finally vote. Kyrgyzstan and Mykolaiv are waiting for us. So the pensions are not being paid. So therefore, we have a question. That is a question that is an important question. Suggest us the agenda of the next meeting. Suggest the topics to discuss. Let's give to the next, to the future minister the questions we would like to discuss. So, dear colleagues, I suggest to vote considering the offers of Mr. Sergei Kozer, because he has an offer. He has a suggestion regarding today's meeting. Let's not talk about who do we take the money from. We have the law of the president of Ukraine on the amends to the boards in 2023, and it was not signed by the president. So let's discuss the topic. You know how much money it will give us. Let's not talk about the things which are just disbalancing our discussion. Dear colleagues, considering what was said by Mr. Sergei and interpreted by me, with improvements, and why do we need it for? Dear colleagues, please formulate the question. What do you want to discuss? So the redistribution of the budget from the suggestion of the Minister of Social Policy to redistribute the sources of fulfilling the budget. So you suggest to take in money from the Minister of Social Policy? Let's vote. Dear colleagues, so we were discussing, so the offer of Mr. Alexander, I do not understand what we're voting for. But the people waiting for us who came from Kryvograd, from Luhansk Oblast. So let's vote who is suggesting, who is positive about this suggestion. One more suggestion, considering the situation with the Minister of Social Policy, and we have made the work on the IDPs, and you can see that there is the informational gap. There is no enough information for the population to get these payments, and I suggest to add. I suggest to add the suggestion to the Cabinet of Ministers. So on the enhancing the informational component for the population. On the rights, on the necessity of on the payments, or in general on the rights of IDPs. So we are talking about the payments, right? So that regarding enhancing the informational campaigns on the IDPs. So this suggestion is clear for me. And what do you think about this suggestion? Do we support it? Yes, we support. Okay, so considering the suggestion of Yulia Svitlychna on the necessity of enhancing by the government the informational campaigns and the component for the deeper informing and for the people to be informed through via SMS, and it is not obligatory mandatory SMS, but what was mentioned by Miss Yulia. Mr. Alexander Yurchenko, the floor is yours. We are voting already. Thank you. Could you repeat, please? Okay, dear colleagues, I suggest to vote considering the suggestion of Mr. Sergei Kozer and Yulia Svitlychna as the separate provisions of our suggestion. Mr. Secretary, please vote who is supporting this offer. Positive. Vujkovich is positive. Vельможный. No answer. Wojciechowski positive. Arbenko, positive. Козир, positive. Молоток, Нехлюдов, Павліш, Світлічна, positive. Юрченко, uh, 11 positive, 1 no answer. Thank you. The decision is made. Thank you, dear participant. Thank you, First Deputy of the Minister. We have one question left. The question on the situation regarding the occupation of discussion on the situation surrounding the purchase of the premises of Druzhba Children's Camp by the Lysychansk City Military Administration for the accommodation of internally displaced person. Today on our meeting, we have Mr. Valery. I have an offer. I have a suggestion. So why are this? We have the military administration at our table. Could you sit closer? I will read the name. So you have seen. Thank you.